Okay, let's jump right into this explainer and figure out how living things actually power themselves from the inside out. I mean, we all know we need food and oxygen to survive, right? But how exactly does a turkey sandwich and a deep breath actually turn into the energy that lets you run, think, and, well, just exist? Today, we're unpacking the incredible, invisible factories operating inside every single one of your cells. Now, we are going to start by busting a massive biological myth right out of the gate. If you stop someone on the street and ask them what respiration is, they'll probably take a deep breath in, let it out, and say, it's breathing. But actually, scratch that. In biology, that is a dangerous misconception. It can literally cost you serious marks on an exam. Breathing is just a mechanical process. Respiration? Well, that's something entirely different, and honestly, way more fascinating. So here's our roadmap for unpacking these hidden mechanics of cellular energy. First, respiration versus gas exchange. Then, ATP, our energy currency. Third, aerobic respiration explained. Fourth, anaerobic respiration in action. Fifth, comparing the two processes. And finally, investigating respiration practically. Section 1, respiration versus gas exchange. Let's set the foundation here and clear up that super common misconception we just mentioned. So let's compare them. Gas exchange is really just the logistics, the delivery system. It's getting oxygen into your lungs and bloodstream and getting carbon dioxide out. But respiration, that's the actual chemical reaction happening inside all of your living cells. It's the cellular process that takes the oxygen supplied by that gas exchange and uses it to break down glucose. And hey, before we go any further, pay very close attention to this vital tip. This is a fundamental rule of the universe. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. So when you're describing respiration, always say energy is released from glucose or transferred. Never write that energy is made or produced. Your biology teachers and those exam graders are going to be looking out for that exact phrasing, for sure. All right, moving on to section 2, ATP, the energy currency. If respiration releases energy from glucose, how is that energy actually packaged up for the body to use? You can't just have raw energy exploding randomly inside a cell. Think of ATP as the biological battery, or the currency that powers absolutely everything. When glucose is broken down, that energy isn't just used directly. Instead, it's used to produce molecules of ATP. You can totally think of ATP like money. Your cells basically spend this ATP to fuel literally any living process that requires energy. So, what are we spending all this ATP currency on? Well, practically everything. From keeping a baby warm so its internal enzymes function at the perfect temperature, to flexing a bicep, dividing cells for growth, firing nerve impulses to your brain, or even building complex proteins. ATP molecules are constantly being broken down to fuel every single one of these vital living processes. It is nonstop. Section 3, Aerobic Respiration explained. Let's look at the primary, highly efficient factory for creating this ATP currency. The absolutely crucial word here is aerobic, which simply means with oxygen. This whole process happens inside the mitochondria of your cells. And because oxygen is present, this reaction is able to completely and utterly break down the glucose molecule. That complete breakdown is a real game changer because it maximizes the energy release, giving you a massive payout of ATP. The only leftovers, or waste products, are just carbon dioxide and water. Now, to really master this topic, you have got to know both of the equations perfectly. The word equation is pretty straightforward. Glucose plus oxygen reacts to form carbon dioxide plus water. But look at the chemical symbol equation. One molecule of glucose, that's C6H12O6, plus 6 molecules of oxygen, 6O2, reacts to become 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, 6CO2, and 6 molecules of water, 6H2O. Okay, a quick, highly practical warning for your exams. If a test specifically asks you for the balanced symbol equation, writing the words down will earn you exactly 0 marks. No matter how scientifically accurate those words are, always give them exactly what they ask for. Symbols for symbols, words for words. Which brings us to section 4, anaerobic respiration in action. So what happens when you decide to sprint full speed for a bus, or you're lifting heavy weights, and your gas exchange system just can't deliver enough oxygen to your muscle cells in time? Well, what's really fascinating is how different organisms handle that lack of oxygen. We call this anaerobic respiration, respiration without oxygen. In humans, when our muscle cells are starved of oxygen, they break down glucose into lactic acid. But in plants and fungi like yeast, the exact same lack of oxygen causes them to break glucose down into alcohol and carbon dioxide instead. Now, because there's no oxygen around, this is an incomplete breakdown of glucose. The glucose molecule is basically just snapped in half, and because of that, it releases way less ATP energy. If you've ever felt that intense, burning sensation in your muscles during a sprint, yeah, that is the lactic acid building up. That buildup lowers the pH in your muscle tissue, making it acidic, and that can actually denature your cellular enzymes if you don't stop and catch your breath. Meanwhile, we actually leverage that exact same anaerobic process in yeast called fermentation by capturing the carbon dioxide waste to make bread dough rise. Pretty cool, right? Section 5. Comparing the two processes. Let's put these two cellular energy factories head to head.
So here is the ultimate summary of our two processes. Aerobic uses oxygen, anaerobic does not. Aerobic completely breaks down glucose, while anaerobic only manages an incomplete breakdown. This leads to completely different waste products. You've got harmless water and exhaled CO2 for aerobic versus that burning lactic acid or ethanol for anaerobic. And crucially, look at the energy output. Aerobic gives you a massive amount of ATP, while anaerobic, it really only gives you a very small, short-term emergency burst.
All right, Section 6, investigating respiration practically. It is one thing to talk about abstract equations, but biology is a practical science. Let's head to the lab and see how we actually prove these invisible chemical reactions are happening in real life. We can physically test for carbon dioxide production by setting up a precise step-by-step experiment. We use a really handy indicator called lime water, which turns cloudy when it's exposed to CO2. So we set up 3 tubes. Tube A gets living, respiring, germinating seeds. But, we also need control variables to prove it's actually the living seeds doing the work. So tube B gets dead, boiled seeds, and tube C gets completely inorganic glass beads, just to control for the physical volume that the seeds take up. After letting the experiment run for a bit, the cause and effect is totally undeniable. Tube A, the one with the living seeds, will turn the lime water a milky, cloudy white. Why? Because the seeds are actively carrying out aerobic respiration and releasing CO2 as a waste product. Tubes B and C, containing the dead seeds and the glass beads, remain completely clear. No life, no respiration, no carbon dioxide. Simple as that. We can also prove respiration transfers heat energy. We do this by placing living seeds in one vacuum flask and dead seeds in another. We use vacuum flasks specifically because their insulation traps thermal energy. We stick a thermometer in, seal it up with cotton wool so gases can still exchange but the heat stays trapped, and then we just wait a few days. Those living seeds will actively raise the temperature inside their flask, literally warming it up with the energy released from respiration. Whenever you're evaluating or designing these practical investigations for your own assignments, always rely on the QORMS prompt. Seriously, it's a lifesaver. It reminds you to identify what you will change, like dead versus alive seeds, the organism you're using, how you will repeat it for reliability, the 2 measurements you'll take, like temperature change over a specific time, and finally, what must remain exactly the same, like the mass of the seeds or the volume of the flask, just to ensure a fair test. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a fascinating puzzle to ponder. We established right at the beginning that energy is never created, it's only transferred. So if living things can only release energy from glucose through respiration, what incredible, massive process put that energy into the glucose molecule in the first place? Think about the sun, think about plants, and you'll know exactly what topic we are diving into next time. Stay curious, and thanks for exploring with me.